Good morning, Twin Cities. Welcome to your Sunday and welcome to Reckoning with Real Estate, a show about the American dream and building a better real estate company. I'm Paige with the Real Estate Collaborative, and I am joined again. This is the second part of a two-part series. I'm joined again by Sammy Silver. Hey, Sammy.
Hey, Paige. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. We're talking about manufactured housing, the importance of it in terms of creating more affordable housing for folks. Sammy has been very involved in legislation at the state level to try to help existing residents of manufactured housing have more control over their property. And so we're going to pick back up the conversation. It's a meaty one, and we might even have to have you back for another episode or two, because as always happens, I think, oh, what are we going to talk about? And then all of a sudden we start talking about it. There's so much to talk about. So the legislation passed the Senate this year, not the House. Tell us about the kind of three legs of the legislation.
Yep. So it's to put a cap on the rent increases each year, a 3% cap, the opportunity to purchase the park, and increased enforcement and transparency for residents.
Okay. And so we talked a lot about the first two legs, the rent cap on the lot rents,
Yep.
the 3% rent cap. We talked about that the last episode. We also talked about the second leg, which was the
Opportunity to purchase.
opportunity to purchase if it comes up for sale, and the private equity firms, which are, kind of screwing up our entire housing ecosystem, even with single family homes, stick-built homes. But it turns out that there's a high interest in these firms purchasing these manufactured home parks because apparently they're very profitable because in part they can jack up the rents year over year. So this bill aims to set a rent cap of 3%. And then the enforcement is the third leg. And that's something we did not get to the last episode. So tell us about the enforcement piece of this legislation.
Yeah. So I like to think I had some influence on this being in the bill. And I'll tell you my personal story first,
Yeah.
which is I had a run in with my own property manager. And when I asked her who holds her real estate license so I could go to her broker and tell on her, she looked at me deer in the headlights and was like, I don't have a license. I don't need one. These aren't real estate. And I was shocked. And I did the research and come to find out she is true and correct. And so it's this part of the bill would make owners liable for things in the park that need to be fixed, their management, fair housing laws, things that me as a property manager on the other side of the equation, I have to adhere to those rules. Like my real estate license is on the chopping block if I'm not following rules, if tenants have those kind of egregious complaints about me or my company and they went to the Department of Commerce is they would look into it and investigate, and there'd be some teeth into this. These manufactured home parks, they don't have to do that. There's no real estate license. Nobody's regulating them. If you have a complaint as a tenant, it really has to go to the AG's office, and bless the AG's heart, but they're really not the organization to be dealing with this. There's no body to deal with the regulation of management and manufactured housing community owners.
Yeah, and that is just crazy. So I am learning in real time with our listeners. I know a little bit about this because I know you and we've talked about it, but I'm learning a lot more as we're doing the show. That is crazy to me because there are real life people that live in these properties that need assistance
Yep.
and have complaints and viable complaints. And it's kind of crazy to me that it's treated so differently than kind of your traditional, real estate where you own the land underneath you.
Yep.
So that's nuts. So I'm glad that you're advocating for all of this. I do want to kind of go back and for our listeners that didn't hear the episode 1 with you, you were talking about you don't own the land underneath, you rent it, and yet you still pay the property taxes.
Yeah,
That's
it's
sticking
crazy.
with me. Yeah, that it's predatory, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it's not right.
No, it's nonsense. I don't have any home
Mhm.
ownership rights, but I'm being treated like a
Mhm.
homeowner. So,
Mhm. So really what this bill is doing is trying to get folks who live in these communities homeownership rights. Like
yep,
they own the land underneath them, so they can organize as a group and decide how best they want to
yep,
live in that community.
yep.
And
Like an HOA or a co-op is ran. The
yeah.
common spaces become things that everybody owns, and it would mean the houses are actual real estate instead of
Mhm.
this two separate things.
It makes so much sense. And we were talking too. So in Minnesota, there are approximately 800 home parks that have the manufactured homes in them. Um, and lots of people live there, and there are approximately 200,000 units where people are living. And so this is a super important conversation, especially when you talk about, affordable housing and creating maybe more of these opportunities for people, which my understanding is most municipalities aren't going to allow a new manufactured home park within their
Correct.
boundaries.
Yep, correct. They don't even want the ones that are currently there
Yeah.
there. If they could get them out, they probably would, but certainly no new ones are being allowed anywhere. Nope.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot on this show about the NIMBYs, the
Yep.
not in my backyard people that want, everything to kind of stay the same and don't want to bring maybe new folks into their communities. And this is really just an extension of that, yet another way that people are keeping new housing out of their communities.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And it is, we were talking about this too. I mean, it really is a classist thing, when it comes right down to it.
Yep. Absolutely. And the stigma that still
Mhm.
exists about people that live in this type of housing, it's still very real. I think it's starting to dissipate a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's definitely classist. It gets shunned even by our own peers at the Realtor Association. It's not treated the same as quote unquote traditional housing.
So tell our listeners about that story. So Sammy and I met at our local real estate association at the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors, and I think we kind of became fast friends because we have a lot of similar interests around housing and affordability, and we're both real estate agents. But you were talking about the state association and your experience with their lawyers slash what are they? Policy advocates, I guess.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So I first testified on these bills, not this past February, but I believe February before, at the House of Representatives, and I was obviously in support of the bill. And much to my surprise, a representative from the state association testified in opposition to the bill right before I spoke. And so after that hearing, I sent out an email and said, "Hey guys, good to see you at that hearing, and I would love to have a conversation
Mhm.
about this bill and see if we can come to a different agreement or a different place and at least hear me."
And because you're a realtor member, you
Yeah,
basically pay their salary.
I pay their salary,
Yeah.
and I volunteered quite a number of my hours on committees at the state and local level. I've put in some work at these associations, so I thought that at the very least my voice would be welcome at the table, even if it's in opposition. And I was told staunchly no, like they wouldn't even hear what I had to say. They wouldn't bring my voice to the table. It was very upsetting. I'm one of their own. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it borders, and I said this to them out loud, but it borders on the line of discriminatory behavior. Like, you
Yeah.
claim to care about housing, but you don't care about that kind of housing.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So,
Yep. They also tend not to care about affordable housing
yeah, no.
in general.
Yep.
And that's been my experience with the associations that I mean, if you're on a committee, like they have to listen to your voice or hear your voice, I
Yep.
guess, but they don't have to listen to it. And that's been my experience as well. So I identify with you on that, and it is so frustrating, and we've done shows about the associations and the three-way agreement, and they really are protecting a certain class of people and a certain brand of realtors.
Yep.
Like, it's the big box realtors that get heard, not the little guys, unfortunately. Welcome to the world of capitalism and living in the United States, I guess. I don't know. And if people want to get involved in this discussion and maybe advocate for this legislation, because it will be back
Yes.
next year, it'll keep. How many years has it been on the
20,
table?
2024. So 2. We're coming into year 3.
Okay, okay, because the legislation that we've been advocating for is the Yes to Homes legislation, and I think we just had our 3rd year and we're going into our 4th year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Not
so
going away.
no, we are not
That's
going
for sure.
away. But for folks that want to get involved in this particular issue, Isaiah is the local organization that is really behind this legislation. And raising it up and being loud about it. And you can go to isaiahmn.org. That's ISAIA. Such a funny word to spell. Isaiah, ISAIAHMN.org. And you can find some information there. They're a great organization, very multiracial and very involved in these sorts of issues that kind of affect all of us. So, and then remind people where they can find you.
www.brightideaproperties.biz. B-I-Z.
Great, great. And you can find us, the Real Estate Collaborative, at therecollab.com. That's TheRecolla, B as in boy.com, therecollab.com. So we have isaiahmn.org, brightideaproperties.biz, B-I-Z, and therecollab.com. And we're going to take a short break, and then we're coming back on the other side and continuing our conversation with Sammy Silver, and we will see you then. Welcome back to the second half of Reckoning with Real Estate. I'm Paige with the Real Estate Collaborative, and Sammy Silver is still here with me. Hey, Sammy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So we've been talking about the legislation that Sammy has been advocating for at the state level around manufactured home parks, and getting those residents more rights, and the importance of that. And just so our listeners know, all of our shows, if you find them on your podcasting platform, there are links to all sorts of stuff underneath. So there'll be a link to like the legislation. There'll be a link to Sammy's property management company. There'll be a link to maybe some data. But anyway, you can always go or go to YouTube and find more information if you want to dive a little bit deeper. But for this last half of the episode, we thought we would talk about the why and why this legislation is important and why manufactured housing is important for our communities and solving the housing crisis. So, Sammy, take it away.
Yeah, so there's several whys. The biggest one for me is that it creates home opportunity for so many people. It really creates an entry-level housing that's not a condo or a townhome that you're sharing walls and spaces with. Yeah.
And that is less expensive than the whatever it is, I don't know, 450,000 median home price in the Twin Cities. 420, I don't remember exactly what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, so
most housing is uh, out of reach for a lot of people, and this is still an affordable option if the
Mhm.
lot rent quits going up at
Right.
any time now, and if it were actual real estate. So if the tenants owned the park instead, and it was a co-op or an HOA, it creates home opportunity for so many people
Mm.
at an entry level. Very much. It's also a sustainable option, and I'm very much into sustainability and taking care of our environment. So, manufactured housing is, I call it micro housing.
Mhm.
It's, I believe tiny homes are under 400 square feet and micro homes are 400 to 1200.
Okay.
So, most single wides are under that, are between 400 and 1200 square feet. So, they're really micro homes. Um, they're, they're sustainable, they are energy efficient, and they're also more affordable to take care of. So when you
Mm.
buy a big house or a traditional house, you still have to maintain it. And working in property management, I get to see some of those bills. so
Right, it's no
so
joke.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's really a good way for people to have and own a home in a non-traditional way, but that is still a home. It has four walls, it has a roof. I have windows and a yard and porch and sheds, like in a
Mhm.
driveway. It's a house by all definitions that I consider a house a house.
Mhm.
So those are the big reasons. And a personal story is when I live by myself, and I had a chunk of money 5 years ago, and I was getting my business off the ground. It was barely off the ground, and I didn't want to buy a house because I was obviously very busy starting a business. So I chose this as the in between option, which at the time made sense. And it opened up the opportunity for me to still own a home of some kind
Mhm.
that I could cash out on at some point and upgrade into a duplex or stick built traditional home. Uh, but it created the opportunity for my business to actually launch and get off the ground. So that's very near and dear to my heart, and a personal reason to me for fighting for this legislation is
Mhm.
it doesn't just open up home opportunity, it opens up other opportunity for people to
Mhm.
have stability and for me build generational wealth. I came from nothing, nobody helped me. I have slept
Mhm.
in my car at points in my life, and had to fight, claw, and scratch my way to where I am. And so I want others to have the opportunity to have that for themselves and build some kind of generational wealth. And this really is one of the ways that that can
Mhm.
happen.
As you were talking and sharing your personal story, which I think a lot of us come to, policy work because of personal stories.
Okay. Yep.
Um, I do as well, and I was, just relating to the business, starting the business. And, I started the real estate collaborative just over 3 years ago. And same thing, I decided to rent because I was like, I just want to put all my energy and efforts into this business. And I knew, I mean, I didn't know exactly, how much time it was going to take and work it was going to take. It's like having a baby. Like if
Yes.
anybody told you, you're like, I don't want to do that. I'm super glad I did it. But yeah, it is all these different options for owning different types of properties or renting. It's all part of this continuum that we really need to kind of address if we're going to get people in sustainable, safe and affordable
Housing.
housing.
Yep.
And to remind our listeners, affordable is 30%. You don't spend more than 30% of your gross income on your housing. And as we know, there are a lot of people spending way more than that, including a lot of seniors. My own mother pays, I think, like 70% um, of her limited, Social Security income goes towards her housing,
Yep.
which creates a lot of pressure in other areas of her life. So it's not sustainable. It needs to be lower. So that's what we talk about a lot on this show. And certainly manufactured housing is definitely a part of the solution and probably a pretty big part of the
Yeah,
solution.
a lot of people in the community I live in are veterans, are old people.
Mhm.
They're on a fixed income. They chose to live this way because it was still affordable. And
Mhm.
w- as the lot rent goes up, it's taking money right out of their monthly check. They can't buy food or
Yep.
meds. It's coming out of somewhere, and that's where it's coming from. And
Mhm.
private equity firms are heartless. They do
Right.
not care that that's where it's coming from. But yes, that's it. It's definitely an affordable long term option that's under attack. So,
Yep,
yep.
yep, because you can't I think we talked about this in one of the other segments, but you can't have new mobile home parks. It's
Nope.
only the existing ones. So that's maybe legislation for a different time, but for now, this legislation would go a long ways towards making these properties just more equitable and giving people more control over their living situation, which
Yeah.
is huge.
Yep. And to dispel some stigma,
Yeah.
I've lived in quite a number. I've lived in 3 or 4 manufactured homes in my life. And the first park I lived in, I made one of the deepest connections I've ever made to the neighbor. And she was a school teacher in Columbia Heights. She was retired, but she taught in Columbia Heights for, I think, 25 years. And she
Mhm.
became a mother like figure to me. And I
Mm.
really connected to her. And it was actually dispelled some of my own stigma
Mm.
to meet her, because you would be really shocked who lives in these
Yeah.
these homes. It's no longer the stigma or your grandma's trailer park, if you will. Like,
Right.
you have upstanding people, hardworking people,
Right.
business owners, people just trying to raise their families or on a fixed income, seniors. Yeah.
Mhm.
And something else I have found that's kind of ironic and diffuses the stigma is the sense of community that I have
Mm.
found where I live is
Mhm.
it's magical and it's so unexpected. Like, my neighbors, both both sides of the political spectrum, and we have street parties. We're at each other's house. We help each other.
I
There's
love
a
that.
community garden. When
Yeah.
ice was out, we all joined together and brought people food, and like, there's actual community in these places. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I love that. It sounds like maybe community in a way that we don't find in other, like, traditional
correct.
neighborhoods.
So it
Yeah.
would surprise you.
Yeah,
Yep.
people are outside
Yep.
and engaging with one
Yep.
another, and yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. We definitely need more of that
Yeah.
these days,
Yep.
for sure. Um, so a recap of the legislation that has been at the state capitol for 2 years, coming back for a third year. Is that
Yep.
so? And you're not going to stop. You're going to
No.
keep pushing and fighting until it goes through. And remind us of the 3 legs of the legislation.
Yep, 3% rent cap, so they can only increase the rent 3% a year. The opportunity to purchase the park so that the residents can buy it before it gets sold again, and increased enforcement and transparency of management and the owners, so they have to do things by the book and have some teeth in the law around who is regulating them. And
Because
so
right now they're not regulated, like you said.
no, they're not.
Yeah.
There's no. It's like a gray area that got overlooked in regulatory bodies. So yeah,
Yeah.
nobody regulates the management.
Are there do different states handle it differently? Like, is there more regulation and oversight in other states?
That's a
Do you
good
know?
question. I do not know,
I
but
wonder. That's something we'll do a little research maybe and come back another time and talk about. And so those are the three pieces of the legislation. If you want to get involved, again, you can go to Isaiah's website. They are very involved in backing this legislation and pushing it forward. And that's isaiahmn.org, ISAIAHMN.org to find more information. There'll also be links underneath program notes on the podcast and on AM 950's site for this episode and all our other episodes. And I just want to thank you so much for coming in and taking the time to talk to us, and hope to have you back again.
yeah,
Will
I
you
would
come
love to
back?
come back.
Okay.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to do this. It's always a pleasure to see you, Kale.
Yeah.
Paige.
Yeah, it's always good to see you too. I
Yeah.
feel like we have a lot of kind of overlap, similarities in our stories, and I just appreciate how honest you are and Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that really struck me when I first met you years ago, at our little local association. Um, but you are listening to I still have a little bit of time left. I'm just gonna talk. Um, you're listening to Reckoning with Real Estate, a show about the American dream
Yeah.
and building a better real estate company, and Sammy has something else to
I
say.
do. What we really need this next election cycle
Great.
is a pro manufactured housing House and Senate. So Republican, Democrat, in between doesn't matter. We need representatives that are going to vote for this bill. Uh, and it's really important. Yes, it's split down party lines, but if you are on the Republican side and you live in a manufactured home, I would strongly encourage you to talk to your representative and tell them to pass this bill. This affects you.
Yeah.
You can scream at the Democrats all day long or whatever, but at the end of the day, call your Republican representative and let them know they need to pass this bill.
Yes. And on that note, that's a great note to end on. We will see you next Sunday. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Take my